Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another meal prep video. I have two lunches for you and one breakfast. It was supposed to be two breakfasts, but we have a fail in this video, and I'm going to show it to you because I have so many people all the time say, oh, your meal prep always looks so good. How do you do it? How do you come up with these ideas? Well, I find a lot of my ideas on the internet for one thing, and they are not always winners. So I wanted to show you the fail, and maybe you can get it to work. So I want it because I think it's a great idea. It just did not work out for me. So I'm going to show it to you at the very end will be the fail. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, I will link the original recipes for all of these down below, but maybe you can make this one work. Let me know in the comments section after you watch the fail if there is something I should have done that you think would have made it a lot better. But we do have three winners in this video, and very, very, very good ones. Two are brand new recipes to me. One of them is a tried and true. So let's get into the meal prep. As always, I start off with my veggies. So here, we're going to make magic happen here really quick. We're going to cut all these up in about 2 seconds, but really it took a lot longer, of course. But here are all my yummy veggies that I have. So if I have some for snacking, and then for all my meals for this week, I have all my veggies done. So I don't have to cut up anything for my dinners, for my lunches, for my breakfast. Everything is done. Highly recommend doing this if you do any kind of meal prep at all. Highly recommend that you at least do this small little step. It helps you so much, especially if you work outside the home like I do. It just helps your dinner and everything come together so much quicker. We're going to start off with a brand new recipe to me, and this is a buffalo chicken pasta. First up, we need some garlic, a whole can of diced tomatoes, some sort of chicken stock, some sort of pasta. You guys know I love this protein pasta. Some shredded chicken. So I just took 2 chicken breasts, shredded them up. They were small chicken breasts. We need a third of a cup of ranch, a third of a cup of buffalo sauce. We're going to use 5 ounces of this third less fat cheese. We're going to use 1.5 cups of this shredded cheese from Velveeta, and then of course some celery and some onions. The first thing we're going to do is cook the chicken. So I've cooked mine in my Instapot. Sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. But this turned out really good this time. So I just have my they're pretty small chicken breasts, added in some bouillon cubes, added in just about 1/2 cup of water. Then I just pressed that poultry button on my Instapot, which was 15 minutes. I let it natural release for 5, and then it was ready to go. First up, we're going to saute up our veggies. So we have some onions and celery. This is about 3 kind of small stalks of celery. My celery was super small. It was not the best celery this week. And then about 1/4 of a white onion. Put in a big heaping tablespoon of minced garlic. And we're just going to saute this up until it's nice and softened up. I am going to add in some of my favorite seasoning, which y'all know, no surprise, is going to be my Kinder's The Blend, which is the salt, pepper, garlic. Y'all know this is my favorite. I bought a gigantic thing of it at Costco, and I have so much. I bought like three of them, 3 of the larger ones at Grocery Outlet. Then I saw the one at Costco, and I bought that one. I love this stuff. It is the best. So we're going to saute that up. Probably took about, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes or so, just until the celery and the onions were softened up. And then we're going to add in that can of diced tomatoes, undrained. Don't drain it. Then we're going to add in 2 cups of chicken broth. Now, I did half this recipe, so the link that I'm going to put down in the description box, I believe it calls for 6 servings. I made mine where it was 4 servings, although you'll see at the end, I ended up doing 5 servings because the 4 servings was a lot. So this pasta, in the original recipe, it calls for 1 pound of pasta. I just weighed out 8 ounces. That way I knew each of, because 2 ounces is a serving. That way I could really keep control of the calories and all of that stuff. So we have all that in there. We're going to bring this to a boil and put the lid on there and let it cook. Meanwhile, with our chicken, we got it all shredded up. I'm going to add in 1/3 cup of this Bolthouse Ranch, and we're going to just stir that up and set it aside. And then this came to a boil. Oh, I think I put these clips out of order. So this came to a boil. Now we're going to put the lid on it, and we're going to let this cook. And it took about, I don't know, depends on the pasta you have, but I kind of like mine a little bit al dente. So I did let it cook for about 10 to 12 minutes or so. And now that you can see all the water has been absorbed, or the broth, I guess, has been absorbed, now we're going to add in our buffalo sauce. I believe the original recipe called for half of a cup, but I just did a third of a cup because, like I said, I was, cutting this recipe down a little bit. This is what I used, the Frank's Red Hot. And now we're going to use this third less fat cheese. It calls for 8 ounces in the original recipe. I just did 5 ounces is what I weighed out and put on there. So you see the cheese there. And then we're going to add in this Velveeta cheese. I believe the original recipe calls for like a cup of mozzarella and a cup of cheddar, if I remember right, but I'm just doing 1.5 cups of this. Now, as I stirred this, I already could tell that we could have done less of the cream cheese and less of the shredded cheese because this was so creamy. And I think it still would have been creamy because this is going to be probably pretty high fat. I have not plugged it into my tracker yet, but I did plan my dinners to be a little bit lower fat, knowing that I had this as an option for lunch. So I'm just going to have to move some things around. Make sure that I know that this is a higher fat lunch, and I'll have to make sure that the rest of my day is a little bit lower fat, and that way I can fit it into my macros, which is the best way to do it. But I could see it was just so creamy that I think if you want to cut down the points and the calories and the fat, you definitely could by putting less of it in there. And I wish I would have done like maybe 4 ounces of it, and like I think we could have done just 1 cup of cheese. And now we're adding in that chicken that has the ranch dressing, which I was thinking, do we really need this on there? Then I took a bite and oh my goodness, like that ranch dressing adds so much to it. Now I think the original recipe called for blue cheese, but my son's going to be eating this as well, and he's not a fan of blue cheese, so I used the ranch, and I already had it in my fridge, did not have to buy it or anything. So now we're going to mix this up, and look how creamy that is. Isn't that look absolutely amazing? So we're going to take this entire batch and we're going to put it on the scale and we're going to weigh it and divide it by 4. So when I did that, and I didn't show the clip where I kind of first started scooping it out. So when I divided this number by 4, it came up with like 718 something grams. So when I started putting it in my containers, I was like, geez, this is a lot. Like it just seemed like so much. So then I decided to divide it by 5, and that was a much better looking serving. And so that's what I ended up doing, 5 servings for this. Now what I do is, since I don't have to take this with me to work because I come home for lunch, and just to save room in the refrigerator, I just do 2 of these containers because my son will take them to work with him. And then I put the rest of them, for me, I just put them in a big container. And now that I know what the grams are going to be, I just weigh that out when I make up my lunch. So you can see I have the 2 here for him, and then I have 3 more servings in this bowl right here. And I'll just weigh that out when I come home for lunch, and then we'll have it. But you guys, I already took a bite of this. Chef's kiss. Like, this was so good, and I cannot recommend this enough. Like I said, I'll put the macros, calories, and points and all that up here on the screen. Don't get shocked because it'll probably be a little bit high, but you know what? We can plan our day around it, which is how you get the good food in. Now we're going to do my low-carb taco casserole, which I absolutely love. You guys know I've been having this for years. Even when I was on keto, I could fit it into my macros. So we have some rice cauliflower here that's been sitting out most of the morning while I've been doing my meal prep and dishes and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's mostly thawed out. So what we're going to do is we're going to cook this in a pan. You don't have to put any kind of non-cooking spray because my pans are non-stick, but whatever you need to do. And we're just going to cook it until it's really dried out. And that's, to me, is like the best way that cauliflower rice tastes. And I'm going to add in some onion. I make this recipe different every time I make it. So if you've watched my videos before where I've made this and you're like, you're doing something different. Yeah, I just kind of wing it with this recipe. So I have the cauliflower. I added in the blend. I'm adding in this tomato bouillon, which I had bought specifically for a different recipe. And now I've been trying to use it for different things. So I put some of that in there. We're going to put some jalapenos in there just for funsies. You know, why not? So I put some of those in there. I'm just going to mix it around a little bit. And then I think I grabbed some taco seasoning as well. Yes, I did my homemade taco seasoning. I do have a video on that. Just look up my DIY spices and you can find my whole video where I show some DIY spices. Now we're just going to continue letting this cook. I think I have this on about maybe 7 on my stove, and I'm just letting it just kind of cook, and I didn't have to add any water in with any of those other seasonings or anything because there's still some moisture in the cauliflower rice itself. So I'm just going to let this go for, I think I did it for about 8-9 minutes or so, And then once it is all done a little bit crispy, we're going to put that into a pan. Now I just use a round casserole dish, but you can use whatever you want. And I'm just going to really kind of smash that down a little bit because we're going to put another layer on top. So, I'm like really weird when it comes to like my casseroles, you all know. Like I like everything to be really like really patted down. So we're going to pat that baby down, and then we're going to go make our meat layer. Now, as you can tell in all the clips and all these, I'm obviously doing all of this stuff simultaneously because I have stuff cooking over there, I have stuff cooking over here, I have dinner in my crock pot over here. So anyway, we have some ground turkey here, at 93% lean. I like to use this one for this recipe because it just has a little bit more flavor in there. So we're going to add that in there. Again, I kind of do this part a little bit different every time. We're going to add in some bell pepper that I chopped up earlier, right at the start of my meal prep. So we're going to put those all together here and we're just going to chop up that meat. So in this layer, we're adding on a lot of flavor too because we want to make sure we have flavor in all of our layers. So we're going to cook these up until the meat's cooked and all the bell peppers are softened and everything. And we're going to be adding in some tomato paste to this, and I just do about a half of a can of tomato paste. That's why I like to buy the tubed kind, but I keep forgetting to buy it when I go grocery shopping. So, and then some more of my homemade taco seasoning, which I always forget doesn't have a lid on there, but we did good on this one. It was okay. It was okay. So we're going to go ahead and stir that up, and we're going to let that sit a little bit. I did end up adding a little bit of water. I don't think I showed that to you, but I did end up adding a little bit of water to it, just to kind of thin out the tomato paste a little bit. But we just sat here and let this cook until your meat's all cooked through and your veggies are as softened as you like. Me, personally, I like my bell peppers to be kind of crisp tender. I like them to have a little bit of char on them, but I still like them to be still just a little bit, crispy. I just don't like them completely, soft. But that's just my preference. So cook them however you want. And then once you have it all cooked down the way you want it, then we're going to add it to that top layer, or we're going to add it to that layer of cauliflower rice. And again, just kind of squish it down on there. Now, obviously, because both of these are cooked through, we're really just putting them in the oven to melt the cheese. But as usual, I'm going to pat this down really well, and then we're going to grab our cheese. So I'm going to be using the Velveeta shreds for this as well. I had a half of a cup left in this bag, and so I'm just going to use that. I mean, like, again, you can just use whatever kind of cheese you want. So I'm just going to put that in there, and then this is going to go into a 350-degree oven for, again, about 10 minutes or so, just until your cheese gets nice and melted. Now, this Velveeta cheese doesn't melt as well as I wish it did, but in the meantime, we're going to get this ready for meal prep. So we have our thing out of the oven. We have our lettuce here that I chopped up. I have some jalapenos here, and then I have little cups here that have some salsa and some plain non-fat Greek yogurt. That's what I use in place of sour cream. And then what I do is I put these in little baggies. So I'm just going to scoop out my nacho jalapenos. And then we are going to put a little bit of sour cream and salsa in the other containers. And then I'll put the lettuce in little baggies. And so then what I like to do is I just put that off to the side, and then I can just add those to the top. Again, I will be making this at home, but my son can take all these pieces with him when he goes to work, and then he can make himself his little low-carb tacos casserole. So this is how I set these all up to take for meal prep. Now we're going to make some protein pumpkin muffins. So we have some Kodiak power cakes here. This is a pumpkin flavored. You don't have to use a pumpkin flavor. I just had it. I think if you just use the regular flavor, because we're adding pumpkin and pumpkin pie spice, I really don't think you need it. So you need 1.5 cups of those Kodiak cakes, half of a cup of your favorite sweetener. We're going to do a half of a tablespoon of cinnamon, half of a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. We're going to need a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. We're going to do 8 ounces of pumpkin. So I'm just doing half this can of pumpkin is what I'll be doing. And then I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce. And we'll be doing 2 eggs. Now, the original recipe that is linked down below, I halved it because it just seemed like it was going to make a lot of them, and I didn't want to make that many. So I just halved the recipe. I will put the original recipe down below, but just make sure you know that I did half of that and it made 12 muffins. Now, for those of you that are bakers, okay, I'm just going to warn you, I'm not a baker. I don't have patience for baking, so I know I'm not going to do anything right. So just to give you a warning now, if any of you are cringing. So I have my two eggs here. We're going to do our wet ingredients. So I have 2 eggs, the vanilla, we're going to do the unsweetened applesauce, and then the pumpkin. And again, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. You know, it's like, it says on the original recipe, it says 16 ounces of pumpkin. So again, I'm just going to do about half this can. And we'll just save the other half to do something else with. So again, just kind of eyeballed it. And we're going to whisk that all together until everything is all incorporated. And then we'll move over to the dry ingredients. So for the dry ingredients, again, we need 1.5 cups of these Kodiak cakes. Again, I'm using the pumpkin ones. A half of a cup of your sweetener of choice. We're going to do a half of a tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice, a half of a tablespoon of cinnamon, and then we'll be doing our teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and then I think I already said the sweetener, half of a cup of sweetener. This is my favorite sweetener. This is the Pure, which is a mixture of stevia and erythritol. That's what I use in all my baking and my cooking. I actually have several different types of sweetener, but my favorite is a stevia erythritol blend. That just is the best, like with my stomach and whatnot. So we're going to get all these in here and we're going to whisk them together. And then I realized, of course, that I definitely did not put this in a big enough container to put these all together. So I'm going to have to go grab a bigger bowl to mix these together. Now we're just going to combine the wet ingredients and the dry ingredients, and I'm probably not doing this correctly, but when I had the recipe, I just jotted down the ingredients. I didn't worry about the steps. So again, yes, I'm probably not doing it correctly, but we just want to get these incorporated. So we're just going to put the wet and the dry together, give it a good stir until everything is all mixed up. And I did give it a little taste, and I knew right away that this was going to be a winner. Again, I have not plugged this into my tracker yet, but it should be pretty good in protein. One thing that you could do maybe to up the protein a little bit, which we're not really using a ton of it, so we used a 1/4 cup of that applesauce. You could do a 1/4 cup of Greek yogurt, but it's not going to, since we're only using a 1/4 cup, it's not really going to pump up the protein that much. When it's all mixed up, you want to use your little whatever muffin things you use. So I like to use this silicone one, and I got this off of Amazon. I didn't really know how many it was going to make, again, because the original recipe I looked at, it did not say how many muffins it made, not that I could see anyway. And so I knew that I had to just kind of see what we were going to come up with. So I just kind of scooped out 1 scoop into each one, and I realized that yes, this was going to make 12 muffins. So I am glad that I halved the recipe, because I definitely would not be able to go through and eat 24 muffins this week. So I probably could have frozen them, but anyway, we're just going to continue scooping these out, and then these are going to go into a 350-degree oven for about 20 to 23 minutes, just depending on your oven, of course. Just check them with a toothpick and to see if they are done. And here they are out of the oven, and I did eat one already, and they are a winner. Oh my goodness, these are so good, so much flavor. Now we're going to go into the fail. So we were going to make some breakfast boats using the soft tortilla bowls from Old El Paso, which I've used these before for tacos. Really good. I've been seeing this recipe popped up on Pinterest. We have some eggs here. I'm glad I used the cheap eggs for this and not my expensive eggs. I did have this turkey sausage, which this is okay. I think I've tried this before and I wasn't like a fan before, and now I'm kind of remembering that. We have a can of diced green chilies, and then a couple of spices. We have the blend, and then we have the red garlic, which is like jalapeno flavor with some garlic. So we have our 8 eggs that we are just going to whisk together here. And we're going to add in the spices, and but it did say in the recipe to make sure you really, really whisk them really well. I felt like I did, but I think they said it really makes a huge difference in like how they look when they're done. I guess so you don't have like some of that white. You just want to make sure the white and the yolk are completely mixed up, which again, I don't have a lot of patience when I'm cooking, so probably could have mixed it up better, but I don't think that's what my fail was. So now we're going to evenly disperse the sausages. So I cooked these in the air fryer and then just chopped them up with my kitchen scissors. And I'm just going to kind of put them through here so I have about an even amount of these. Now, I didn't even notice, this is where I should have noticed, if there's any holes in some of these taco shells. I did notice we have some that are kind of flattened. When I got them from my grocery order, this is how they were. So they were kind of flattened a little bit there. But I did not notice that some had holes in them. But you know what? That'll be really evident here in a second. So our next step here is to add in the eggs. So we're going to pour these in here, and I didn't notice right away. I mean, first I was just kind of pouring them into the better shaped ones, and then because I didn't know if those other ones were going to work or not, that was the least of my worries at this point. So we're going to be pouring these in there, and then I kind of, as I was trying to pour some of them into that misshapen ones, I started realizing, oh, what the heck? Like, I'm getting egg. There's egg like all over. What's going on? And then I realized there's a hole in the side of those two, the upper right there. There's holes in those, both of those ones. And they were leaking out all over the place. And then this other one started leaking out all over the place. But again, that's not really the problem, as you will see. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to put these in the oven. And it said to do them at 325. I did them at 350 because everything else was cooking at 350. And it said to do them at 350 and put them in there for 10 minutes. And then you would bring them out, put some cheese on there, put some foil on top, and then you put them back in again for another 10 minutes. Now, I also want to show you that when I'm doing my meal prep, this is why it doesn't take me that long to do my meal prep, because I got all my stuff ready at one time and then put them all in the oven at one time. So I did want to show you that little tip to do that. So after 10 minutes, this is what they look like. They were really not done. So I put them back in for another 5 minutes while everything else was getting done, and they still looked like this. So then I tried picking them up. I thought I'm going to take the ones that were not done off. I mean, the ones that were done off, but then they were all sticking to the bottom because of those leaky ones. So you guys know what? This was a fail. I didn't even want to bother with them, so I ended up just tossing them all, which I know is a waste of money, but you know what? I just knew that there was just no way of saving them. But let me know in the comments, is there anything I could have done better? You think that why they did not cook through all the way? I guess maybe I filled them too full. I'm not sure. But I have some winners in this video. The buffalo pasta, like I said, chef's kiss. The pumpkin muffins, amazing. And of course the low carb casserole. I knew that was going to be good because it always is. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check out the description box for all those links, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.